So you got a money rejection complex. And this is why it's tough for you to make money, because you believe that it's something wrong with thinking about money a lot. What you think about is what you will become. If you want more money, you need to think about more money, having it already. I'm in abundance. I have it all. You have to have that consciousness about yourself. I mean, the proof is there. People who think about not having money are in poor conditions. They live poor because they simply believe in poverty. They're not believing in it like, hey, I love my poverty. No, they believe in it in ways by saying, I'm broke. I don't have a lot. I wasn't born with a lot of money. My family don't come for a lot of money. We don't have it like the other people got it. See, they speak to their poverty, whereas the wealthy speak to their wealth. You know, today I'm thinking about going and investing in this. I'm gonna buy some property. Oh, what's going on with this company? You think that's a good idea for me to invest in that? They're having these conversations. I heard something that made total sense to me. All right, let's record this baby. I have to look at the video over again. That's going to be listed as one of the properties of the trust. So it's impossible to, you know, have your, not have the bank account on it before you set up the trust. So the bank account needs to be set up before you set up the trust. And I know that's the important part, protecting your money. This is, a lot of you guys are running around. Y'all got IRS debt hanging over your head. And just 2 days ago, someone who teaches people how to beat the IRS got their money taken out of their account. Now, it confuses me. How are you teaching people to protect yourself from the IRS, but yet your bank accounts are listed in your social? That means that they are just studying part of the law. They're not studying the whole. They don't have a holistic approach to what they are doing. They just saw something, good information, it worked, and they're teaching that. Okay, yeah, okay, I got IRS issues, but how do I keep them from just taking my money? You know, they don't care. They'll just take it and let you fight for it. You see? So this irrevocable trust webinar is geared towards showing you how to set up the bank account, set up the trust, and how to protect yourself from them just taking your money. And the worst culprits of, not everybody is muted. Let me go ahead and mute the mics real quick because can't. Let me do a drop down here. Give me a second. Now, oh, okay, Glenda got in. Thank goodness. All right, you're in. We just started, Glenda, so you're good. Before I continue, let me just do a mic check. Can everybody hear me? Are there any problems with, I hear feedback, so somebody's got too much background or they're not muted. And remember, this is a part of the recording, so if you're not, this is going to be picked up. So, can y'all all hear me? Just let me know one at a time. Alcevita Bay said they can hear me. I know Andre can hear me. World Ruler. Sure, everybody say yes, yes. Marshall, yes, yes. All right, now I'm muting mics out. Let me go and mute these mics. All right. You know. All right, everybody's muted. No feedback. All right, let's go to the first thing. This, like I said, this is going to teach you how to protect your assets. That's the most important thing. Let's not let the vultures get into our accounts because we overlooked something. And one of the things we're overlooking, we're so busy doing daily transactions, we're not going into these banks and setting stuff up properly. I have gone to the different banks and asked them, what do I need to bring in here to set up the trust, and you will be surprised at the answers. It's not as complicated as you've heard, and it's very simple. Some of the banks don't even need to see your trust documents. All they want you to do is fill out a simple paper that protects them, and that's it. And they want the CP 575 form. That is it. That's all they need from you. All right. All right, let's start off with everybody type in the chat if you can see. If I'm sharing my screen, and you should be looking at an irrevocable trust. I've read this on the air. This is not information that this information is easy to achieve. You type in irrevocable trust and you can find this. This is not difficult to find, but I'm going to read it just the benefit of this webinar. All right. It says, let me make it a little bigger. And let me put the link in the chat, so if y'all want to go to that web page, you can. And it'll be, there's a link in the chat. There. All right. Irrevocable trust. What is an irrevocable trust? An irrevocable trust is a type of trust where terms cannot be modified, amended, or terminated without the permission of the grantor's named beneficiary or beneficiaries. The grantor having effectively transferred all ownership of assets into the trust legally removes all of their rights of ownership to the assets and the trust. So this is saying once you take and put something into the trust, only way it can be changed is if the beneficiary agrees. You have one or many, they have to agree. Now, yes, this is a question that may come up. Can you be the grantor and the trustee at the same time? Yes, you can. You can also be a beneficiary as well. You can hold all three positions. But if you are a trustee and the grantor at the same time, in the tax world, you're not going to receive certain benefits from the taxes. Meaning, say if you place a house property in there and you're the trustee and the grantor, that estate tax is going to still apply to that trustee. Whereas if you put it all the way in the trust and you're not the trustee, it's not going to apply. So you have to be careful about that. I know some of you, when you're setting this up, you're going to make yourself the trustee at first, especially for that bank account. But if you're going to do that, most of the banks that I've researched, if you're going to be the trustee and the grantor, you're going to have a secondary trustee on that form just in case something happens to you. So I recommend having at least 2 trustees outside of yourself, so that if something happens to the other one kicks in. But as we read through the trust document, you'll see how it's outlined. All right, let me keep reading. This is in contrast to a revocable trust, which allows the grantor to modify the trust, but thus loses certain benefits such as creditor protection. This is what I was talking about. If you have a revocable trust, you don't have protection from your creditors. Now, some will argue, well, I'm using a 98 number and things like that, and I'm using the CPN to open up the bank account, things like that, that protects me. Yes and no, it doesn't protect you. Here's why. If I own a car that's under my social and I transfer it into a revocable trust, that still can be traced back to your social. You get it? So yes, there's protection, but if you're trying to avoid some issues with a tax thing and then you just all of a sudden transfer property from your social into a revocable trust, even if you're using a 98 number, even if you're using a CPN to open up the bank account, they can still track that piece of property back to the social. So you do not have the protection that you think you have. But now, if you take that same piece of property and put it in that irrevocable trust, and you use the 98 number and you use the CPN to open up the bank account, there's nothing they can do. Nothing. They cannot touch it. That trust owns that piece of property. See, here's the problem we've been having in the past. We've only been getting a part of the picture and not the whole picture. And today, I'm trying to give you as big of a piece of that picture as I can. I'm still sure there's other pieces of this picture that still remains to be seen, but you're going to have a wider understanding on what to do with your trust and how to operate it properly. A lot of people have taken their cards and put them in trust, registered the cards, blah, 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 but they still ended up having problems, even using 98 numbers, things like that, because that property came from a straw man into that revocable trust. All right, here we go. How an irrevocable trust works. The main reasons for setting up an irrevocable trust are for estate and tax considerations. The benefit of this type of trust for estate assets is that it removes all incidents of ownership, effectively removing the trust assets from the grantor's taxable estate. It also relieves the grantor of the tax liability on the income the assets generate. While the tax rules vary between jurisdictions, in most cases, the grantor can't receive these benefits if they are the trustee of the trust. That's what I was talking about earlier. The assets held in the trust can include, but are not limited to, a business, investment assets, cash, and life insurance policies. So, you can take a business you have and transfer ownership into your trust, your irrevocable trust. You can take investment assets, cash, life insurance policy. Let me talk about life insurance policies. If you decide to do a life insurance policy, you get the life insurance in the name of the trust and you name beneficiaries, of course. But in my research, I recommend you create another irrevocable trust and name that the beneficiary if something happens to the grantor or the trustor of that trust. This way, the money gets transferred into a trust and it will receive, or irrevocable trust, and receive the same tax benefits as the trust that paid it out. We are so powerful, we can have what we want. There's no doubt about it. You can have exactly what you want. And guess what? You are getting exactly what you think. See, having what you want and having what you think is two different things. They gotta align. You can't be wanting peace, but thinking hell. You have to align your consciousness with the reality. You have to align it. There's people out here that want to be millionaires, billionaires, whatever. At least have a lot of money, at the least. But for some reason, they can't get it. They're not in line or in the frequency of that flow of money. Why? Simply because their rhythm, vibration, and their thinking is not in that space. For a fleeting moment, they think about, man, it'd be good to have all of this money. Do you realize that when you say it will be good to have all this money, you just declared to the universe that you don't have it? So therefore, you're stuck in that spot where you know and believe you don't have it. Wish I had this, I wish I had that. That's why you ain't got it, because you wish it. Another reason why you got it, you're praying to God to give it to you instead of thanking God that you got it. Because all that God has to offer is already there for you to go walk up and take part in. It's like a divine buffet. Peace, peace. What's up? All right, checking my mic, doing a mic check. It's working. It's working. It's working. Gotta check these things, man. 'Cause next you know that I'll be talking for a whole 5 minutes and nobody can hear me. Can't do that. Um, hold on. I'm trying to do something here. Give me a second. Give me a second. Yeah. I'm trying to do something new. Bear with me. I should have. I was on the road. I wanted to go see my buddy. Hold on a second. Rico. He had some deer meat for me. Today we're going to talk about manifest destiny. Manifest destiny. I'm trying to, you know what, this thing want to play with me right now. All right, there we go. I got it. My all right. This thing is supposed to follow me, but it don't look like it wants to follow me like it's supposed to. Anyway, it looks perfect. I got the camera working on my phone. So today we're talking about manifest destiny. And I'll put this here. The reason why I did this on manifest before I get into that, let me just thank everybody for tuning in on the Truth Tuesday show faithfully. You know, I've been doing this show for 10 years. You know, I started off on Blog Talk Radio, and that was in 2015. Do y'all realize some of y'all been around that long? Then I graduated over to YouTube, and right now I'm streaming live on TikTok. So I'm trying to see how that's gonna go. But thank everybody for tuning in on TikTok, YouTube, and also I got Telegram up. So if you got questions, you can get on my Telegram. Let me get you the link for that. The Telegram link. I always invite member, copy. Hope this will work. Mm-mm. There it is. I put it in the I put it in the wrong chat. I put it in I need to put it on the YouTube chat. All right, come on now. Stop backing up. Now it's not letting me paste in here for some reason. I'll figure it out. But anyway, so if you're on my Telegram channel, you can just go to Telegram. Most of y'all who's listening has got that. Um, so I heard a speech right after Trump got elected. He did a speech, maybe a few days after, maybe a week. I'm not elected, but after his inauguration, and he was going over some of the things that he wanted to do for the country. And and he said something in the speech that jolted me. He used the term manifest destiny. And that term, if you hear anybody saying that, especially if they're of the pale persuasion, Caucasian, white, whatever you want to call it, European, you need to be paying attention. And he said it in the speech, our manifest destiny. And if you understand what manifest destiny is, it is what the European settlers used to displace millions of indigenous people to the Americas. This is the reason why Mexico is what it is today. Because remember, Mexico stretched Texas, California. This is the reason why. This is manifest destiny is the reason why the indigenous populations moved west. Or not moved, was relocated forcibly. They had no choice. They passed laws that said you can't live here no more because we're going to give it to these people. And they did this because it was considered their right as Christians. And because they were Christian and the indigenous people were not, they looked down on them and considered them less than human beings. Like I mean, you don't have to believe me. I'll take you to the website. This is actually right out of the archives. I'll put this link in the chat. I can only put the link in the chat on Telegram and on YouTube. I don't know how to do it on TikTok yet, people. I don't know how to do it on there. I'll figure it out one day. So let me get it into the YouTube chat. This is what I'm reading. For some reason, I cannot. It won't let me paste into copy and paste. There we go. I just move it into this window to do it. Yeah, I figured it out that fast. This is from the archives. As you can see, it says www.locc.gov/resource/RBPE.1740400A/. This is the actual order number. I think it says order number 25, headquarters, Eastern Division, Cherokee Agency, TN. I'm not sure what that meant. May 17, 1838. This is the orders. And it says here, Major General Scott of the United States Army announces to the troops assembled and assembling in this country that with them he has been charged by the president to cause the Cherokee Indians yet remaining in North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama to remove to the west, according to the terms of the Treaty of 1835. His staff will be as follows. Oh, I'm just scrolling up here. Lieutenant Colonel W.J. Worth, acting adjutant, adjutant, I don't know how to pronounce that. It's ADJUTANT. I'm not familiar with that word. General Chief of the Staff, Major M.M. Payne, Acting Inspector General, Lieutenants R. Anderson and E.D. Keys, regular aides de camp, Colonel A.H. Keenan, and Lieutenant H.B. Shaw, volunteer aides de camp. They're telling them to decamp. Any order given orally or in writing by either of those officers in the name of the Major General will be respected and obeyed as if given by himself. The chiefs of ordnance of the quartermaster's department and the commissariat, as also the medical director of this army, will, as soon as they can be ascertained, be announced in orders to carry out the general object with the greatest promptitude and certainty, with the least possible distress to the Indians. The country they are to evacuate is divided into 3 principal military districts. Did y'all hear that? It says, and with the least possible distress to the Indians, the country they are to evacuate is divided into 3 principal military districts. So basically, this is a military occupation. And they divided them into 3 distinct military districts. And they were to evacuate, not because there was a natural disaster coming. Eastern District to be commanded by Brigadier General Eustis of the United States Army, or the highest officer in rank serving therein. North Carolina, the part of Tennessee lying north of Gilmer County. Georgia, and the counties of Gilmer, Union, and Lumpkin in Georgia. Headquarters in the first instance, say, at Fort Butler. Hang on. Let me Western District to be commanded by Colonel Lindsay of the United States Army of the highest officer and rank serving therein. Alabama, the residue of Tennessee in Dade County in Georgia, headquarters in first instance say in Ross Landing. And Middle District to be commanded by Brigadier General Amistad of the United States Army or the highest officer in rank serving therein. All that part of the Cherokee country lying within the state of Georgia and which is not comprised in the two other districts. Headquarters in the first instance say at New Akota. It is not intended that the foregoing boundaries between the principal commanders shall be strictly observed, either with carried near the district of another will not hesitate to extend his operation according to the necessities of this case, but with all practicable harmony into the adjoining district. And among his principal objects in case of actual apprehend hostilities will be that of affording adequate protection to our white people in and around the Cherokee County. So this is white supremacy at its highest. Damn, where these people were here before them. It was all about what they wanted and the conveniences they wanted to take over. So when I hear people talk about we need to get over certain things, and when I see just in this country alone how they get down, like right now we're spending all of this money, or this country is spending. I'm not spending any of it. This country is spending all this money to help out Ukraine and other places. They give money away because of human rights violations. Let me say that again: human rights violations. But this right here is a human rights violations at its highest. These people were living peacefully, minding their business, and they just created a law, gave the military orders, and said, "You got to go." Imagine that. Then they had the nerve to say to do this without the least stress possible. I mean, just tell them someone have to get out of their house or home is stressful in itself. So so Trump used the word manifest destiny. So that leads me to believe there's something. Did he know what that how that started? Let me keep reading because it gets. Let me read some more of this. I got some more. It's a lot to read here. See, when you start going through archives, if you want to know history, you don't read history books because history is what? His story, the one they made up. Anything history they giving you in school is large majority of that stuff is made up history and based in a lot of fiction and based in the imagination of the European settlers mindset or the creators of the education system to create a narrative that promotes white supremacy. Period. That's what it's about. And if you, I mean, when I was in school, we were taught the Indians were savages. But I don't recall in any documents in these archives where I saw the Indians came out and was just putting people out of their homes. First of all, it was their home to begin with. So all of these, what we call illegals that's coming into the country, I can guarantee you, if you trace their lineage back, it will be traced right back to this land. Most of those people, the people that are down there in Puerto Rico, down there in Mexico, it can they well think about it. It only makes sense, right? You are naturally drawn to the land that your ancestors are from. And this is why they come here. But what people don't know or fail to realize, what we think is another race of people or another group of people, an ethnic group of people, maybe they look different, right? They have different features, different hair textures. But if you really dig deep, all of the people there are related somehow to the people here, especially the people of color. Because before they were here, there was a group of people before them. And then you had the mixing in of different groups of people, which created what you call the variations in skin color, hair textures, and things like that. I mean, scientists see one time they tell so many lies that they when they do get to the truth, they tell you that everybody's related by simply telling you that everybody migrated here from Africa, right? There was a group that came here, settled, or they took up thousands of years before the European settlers got here. There's documentation of that. But for some reason, for some reason, all the other people that came to this land that were non-European seemed to be able to cohabitate together without problems. Now, did they have wars? Yeah, there's some wars. There was some civil wars going on. But we didn't they didn't have you didn't have the mass relocations of people and then hostile takeovers of the land. You didn't have things like Red Summer where people were just minding their business. You know, what they're calling Black and African American today had thriving communities where they had their own stock market. They were insulated, meaning they were doing business amongst each other. They didn't need anybody else's help. And then what did they do? Red Summer of 1919, they went around and bombed all of these communities, Oklahoma, and a lot of in your major cities around the country. I mean, I don't have to. You could just go look it up. Just say type of Red Summer. Look it up. So let's keep reading. Major General will endeavor to visit in a short time all parts of the Cherokee country occupied by the troops. So they called that Cherokee country. It was a whole country. It wasn't the United States at that time. It wasn't part of the United States. They moved those people out and then called it United States or part of the. So that means they said this was North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama. That means North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama was Cherokee country. Think about that. Think about that. That became that was Cherokee country. Then they moved it out. Then it became a large settlement of Europeans. The duties devolved on the army through the orders of the major general and those of the commanders of district under him are of a highly important and critical nature. The Cherokees, by the advances which they have made in Christianity and civilization, are by far the most interesting tribe of Indians in the territorial limits of the United States. Of the 15,000 of those people who are now to be removed, and the time within which a voluntary immigration was stipulated will expire on the 23rd instant. So they had given them an opportunity so they could immigrate, not immigrate, immigrate. They had a certain amount of time to do it. And then if they didn't do it, then it was forcefully removed. It is understood that about 4/5 are opposed and have become averse to a distant immigration. And although none are in actual hostilities with the United States or threaten a resistance by arms, yet the troops will probably be obliged to cover the whole country they inhabit in order to make prisoners and to march or to transport the prisoners by families either to this place, to Ross Landing of Gunter's Landing, where they are to be finally delivered over to the superintendent of Cherokee immigration. They're telling you they're going to use the military to force these people out. And you know the military wasn't going to treat them good. Considering the number of and temper of the mass to be removed, together with the extent and fastnesses of the country occupied, it will rarely occur that simple indiscretions, acts of harshness, and cruelty on the part of our troops may lead step by step to delays, to impatience and exasperation, in the end, to a general war and carnage. This is in the archives. This is actually documented. But how come they don't teach this? They taught that the Indians were savages in the history books when I was growing up, that they were savages. But this sounds savage to me. Utterly abhorrent to the generous sympathies of a whole. Let me go back. Delays to impatience and exasperation, in the end to a general war and carnage. A result, in the case of those particular Indians, utterly abhorrent to the generous sympathies of the whole American people. Yeah, see the arrogance? Abhorrent to the generous sympathies of the whole American people. What sympathies? Really? This is this is the mindset of a crazy of a crazy and deranged people. Every possible kindness compatible with the necessity of removal must therefore be shown by the troops. And if in the ranks a despicable individual should be found capable of inflicting a wanton injury or assault on any Cherokee man, woman, or child, it is hereby made the special duty of the nearest good officer or man instantly to interpose and to seize and consign the guilty wretch to the severest penalty of the laws. Let's see how they was going to enforce that. The Major General is fully persuaded that this injunction will not be neglected by the brave men under his command, who cannot be otherwise than jealous of their own honor and that of their country. By early and persevering of the kindness and humanity, it is impossible to doubt that the Indians may soon be induced to confide in the army, and instead of fleeing to mountains and forests, flock to us for food, clothing. If, however, through false apprehensions, individuals or a party here and there should seek to hide themselves, they must be pursued and invited to surrender, but not fired upon unless they should make a stand to resist. Even in such cases, mild remedies may sometimes better succeed than violence, and it cannot be doubted that if we got possession of the women and children first, or first capture the men, that in either case the outstanding members of the same families will readily come in on the assurance of forgiveness and kind treatment. They're going to capture the people and then they will come back and beg for forgiveness. Wow. Wow. Every captured man, as well as all who surrender themselves, must be disarmed with the assurance that their weapons will be carefully preserved and restored at or beyond. I'm scrolling down here. Mississippi. In either case, the men will be guarded and escorted, except it may be where their women and children are safely secured as hostages. But in general, families in our possession will not be separated unless it be to send men as rumors to invite others to come in. I mean, when you look at what's going on, this is like history repeating itself all over again. Like you look at the news, it may they call them illegal aliens, but I mean, come on. How did they get here? Did they get a passport to get into this country? Anybody check their documentations when they came and settled here? No, they just shipped them over here. Let me give y'all a little fact here. A lot of, especially Irish descendants, came here by way of indentured servitude. England didn't like them because they were Catholic, and England was a Protestant, mainly Protestant. So what they would do is capture this is over in Europe. They would capture the children and call them vagrants, ransom them off to the parents and say, well, we and charge them these huge fines and say, well, since you can't pay it, you can go over to the New World and work it off along with your children. That's how a lot of them got over here. They didn't most a lot of the settlers came over here by duress because it was so harsh over there in England. There's a book called "They Were Irish and They Were Slaves." You should get that. They were Irish and they were slaves. See, these are the parts of history that are never discussed. See, they want to show you movies like 12 Years a Slave and all of those nonsense. And 12 Years a Slave, it's a horrible movie to watch. But that's a small example of what really was happening. They wasn't moving mass amount of people from Africa to here. They were moving people from one side of the country to the other, the indigenous people that were already here. See, they want you to think these Indians are these lighter, amalgamated or maroons. They were dark people. And how they became slaves is a redesignation from being indigenous or Indian. And then you got it. Where did African American come from? Jesse Jackson. He made that term up. When he was running for president, shortly before that, he coined that phrase. And then all of a sudden we called African Americans. And that don't even make sense. Because if you go, Africa is a continent with different countries, Libya, Nigeria, Ghana. So I'm gonna say it doesn't even make sense. And when you look around, if you trace your ancestry all the way back, I know they do these DNA tests and all of that. Everybody's from here. I cannot tell you how many black families, what we call black or African American, right here in America, in the United States of America, have what you call air property. And again, does Europeans want to take it? Hilton Head Island, prime example. That was all owned by the indigenous people from there. See, you have to look at this thing with critical thinking. How did people who were supposed to be enslaved end up with so much land? Or maybe they was just imprisoned on their own land. Just like these people who had land and they just kicked them out and moved them west. Think about it. See, one thing you have to remember about this educational system in America, because I've talked to people from other countries and I thought they said, man, that stuff they teaching, they know it's false. Because I met a South African woman at a bank. I went to the bank, and when you look at this woman, she looks like she's Latino, like she's Latin descent, but she's South African. And we started to talk about history. So, I was very disappointed when I moved here and I enrolled my children in these schools because I could tell this history they're teaching is totally false. So when you think South Africa, you think mostly people with dark skin. No, there's some very very light people, and then in from all backgrounds over in South Africa. So what I was gonna say, history from mainstream educational system is largely made up nonsense. That if you really dig deep into it, you'll start to see that none of this stuff really makes sense. Okay? So let's keep going. It may happen that Indians will be found too sick, in the opinion of the nearest surgeon, to be removed to one of the depots indicated above. In every such case, one or more of the family or the friends of the sick person will be left in attendance with ample subsistence and remedies, and the remainder of the family removed by the troops. So Infants, super superannuated persons, lunatics, and women in a helpless condition will all, in the removal, require peculiar attention, which the brave and humane will seek to adapt to the necessities of the several cases. So they keep trying to paint the soldiers as brave and humane. All strong men, women, boys, and girls will be made to march under proper escorts. For the feeble, Indian horses and ponies will furnish a ready resource. So they're gonna make these people walk. That if they were able bodied. Wow. As well as for bedding and light cooking utensils, all of which, as intimated in the treaty, will be necessary to the immigrants both in going to and after arrival at their new homes. Such and all other light articles of property the Indians will be allowed to collect and to take with them, as also their slaves, who will be treated in like manner with the Indians themselves. What? Wait a minute. Did y'all just catch what I said? It said the Indians will be allowed to collect to take with them, as also their slaves, who will be treated in like manner with the Indians themselves. So the Indians had slaves. See, if you want history, true history, you got to go to the archives. You can't be trusting in those textbooks that their fantasy writers are creating in these schools. If the horses and ponies be not adequate to the above purposes, wagons must be supplied. Corn, oats, fodder, and other forage, also beef cattle belonging to the Indians to be removed, all be taken possession of by the proper departments of the staff, as wanted for the regular consumption of the army, and certificates given to the owners, specifying in every case the amount of forage and the weight of the beef so taken, in order that the owners may be paid for the same in their arrival at one of the depots mentioned above. All other movable or personal property left or abandoned by the Indians will be collected by agents appointed for the purpose by the superintendent of Cherokee immigration under the system of accountability for the benefit of the Indian owners, which he will devise. The Army will give to those agents in their operations all reasonable continence, aid, and support. White men and widows, citizens of the United States who are or have been intermarried with Indians and thence commonly termed Indian countrymen, also such Indians as have been made denizens of particular states by special legislation, together with the families and property of all such persons, will not be molested or removed by the troops until a decision on the principles involved can be obtained from the War Department. They did the War Department. So before I forget this thought, if if people ever get in their head that white privilege don't exist, you need to let them read this. Because this is white privilege at its finest, because it's saying if they were married into, like, if a white man was married into with the Indians, they didn't have to go unless they had to see. And this is how white wealth was created in this country. People was dispossessed of their lands, and it was given to the Europeans. So when people say, well, you got all the opportunity in the world, yes, we do have a lot of opportunities now. Yes, we do. You can make as much money as you want to right now. But let's not forget, some people had a head start, a big one. So basically, there's a lot of catching up to do. But this is what I say: what goes around comes around. It always happens. If you look at history, what you put out, what you measure out, will be measured back to you. That's just how it goes. So just sit back, get your popcorn, and watch. Just watch. A like indulgence, but only for a limited time and until further orders is extended to the families and property of certain chiefs and headmen of the two great Indian parties on the subject of immigration, now understood to be absent in the direction of Washington on the business of their respective parties. This order will be carefully read at the head of every company in the army. So that was an order. So let's go to this. So this was done under the Indian Removal Act. The Indian Removal Act was signed into law by President Andrew Jackson on May 28, 1830, authorizing the president to grant lands west of Mississippi in exchange for Indian lands within existing state borders. A few tribes went peaceful, but many resisted the relocation policy during the fall and winter of 1838 and 1839. The Cherokees were forcibly moved west by the United States government. Approximately 4,000 Cherokees died on this forced march. It was a march, they made them walk, and this was the winter, which became known as the Trail of Tears. So now they're making a big deal about people coming into this country illegally. But it seemed like this country was founded on that principle, coming here illegally or coming here without permission. But because at the time they came, there were no real laws. The Indians didn't have laws to keep people off their borders. They welcomed them, and this is what happened: being friendly to strangers. That's why the mother said, "Never talk to strangers." But anyway, something else I wanted to read. Let me get this up. So the concept of manifest destiny has significant racial biases that shaped U.S. expansionist policy and justified the displacement, oppression, and even extermination of non white population. Below are key aspects of racial bias in Manifest Destiny: white supremacy and the justification of expansion. Manifest Destiny was rooted in the belief that Anglo Saxon Americans were superior to indigenous, Mexican, and black populations. White settlers saw themselves as civilizers, bringing democracy and Christianity to what they considered uncivilized lands. So because they didn't live like they did or believe like they do, they were uncivilized. See, there wasn't any what you call grace or tolerance of other people's faiths. Native American displacement and genocide. The U.S. government used manifest destiny to justify policies like the Indian Removal Act of 1830 and their later destruction of native tribes. The Trail of Tears 1838, which I was just reading the orders, 38, 1839 was a direct consequence, forcibly relocating tens of thousands of Cherokee, Choctaw, and other tribes. The myth that Native Americans were destined to disappear further rationalized land sieges and massacres like the Sand Creek Massacre 1864 and Wounded Knee 1890. The Mexican American War and anti Mexican sentiment. The Mexican American War 1846-1848 was fueled by the idea that Mexicans was racially inferior and incapable of governing the land they control. Man, them people lived there for thousands of years. How you gonna come and tell them what you couldn't handle your business over where you was? That's why you was over here. And most of the people that came here to be settlers were crooks from another place or considered crooks. They were outcast, vagrants. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, 1848, promised rights to the Mexicans living in annexed territories, but these were really honored, leading to land dispossessions. After the U.S. took half of Mexico's territory, Mexican residents in areas like Texas and California were racially discriminated against, legally and socially marginalized. Let's not get it twisted, man. Whenever they talk about illegal immigration, it always has to do with somebody of color. And they don't ever talk about the many of students who come here on student visas from the European countries and don't go back home. They don't. That's not the face they put on it. Let me give you something. A lot of your illegal. See, they got you concentrating on these borders, but a lot of them come here by plane, just simply coming here on a visit and never going back home. Period. Slavery and expansion debate. Manifest Destiny was entangled with the expansion of slavery, leading to conflicts over whether new territories should allow slavery. Example given, the Kansas Nebraska Act. Pro slavery advocates used the doctrine to justify extending slavery into new lands, while abolitionists opposed it, seeing expansion as a way to increase slave power. The racial hierarchy in newly annexed lands ensured the black Americans, whether free or enslaved, faced continued oppression. Five, anti Asian. Remember, I told you, Asians were discriminated against too. Anti-Asian racism and consequences of westward expansion. As settlers moved westward, Chinese immigrants who came for the California Gold Rush 1848 18 to 1855 faced extreme racism. Laws like the Chinese Exclusion Act 1882 were rooted in racial fears that non-white laborers would undermine the white workforce. Violent attacks, including lynchings and expulsion campaigns, targeted Asian and Latino communities in the West. So they moved them out, and they still was attacking these people. The legacy of racial bias in the manifest destiny. I just want y'all to get this in your head. This man actually said out of his mouth, manifest destiny in his speech. That is not a mistake. The racial biases embedded in manifest destiny still influence modern racial inequalities, land disputes, and immigration policy. Indigenous and Latino communities continue to fight against land dispossessions and historical erasure. The idea of American exceptionalism, which traces back to manifest destiny, still informs racial attitudes in contemporary politics and foreign policy. Conclusion. Manifest Destiny was not just about territory expansion, it was deeply tied to racial hierarchies that justify the oppression of Native Americans, Mexicans, African Americans, and Asians. These biases has lasting effects to U.S. history and continue to shape racial dynamics today. There you have it. Here it is. Let's see what's going on Telegram. Let me give you these other links. I'll put them. All the links are going to be in a Telegram link. And I'm gonna get the all right, the link to the stuff that I was reading. This is straight out of the Library of Congress, y'all. Library of Congress. A lot of interesting things. If you go to you check the census records of the Library of Congress, you could trace your family through the census records. I did. Some years ago I did it. So what are they saying? Indie Circle Ministries said, "Peace, my brother." Roz Blackwood says, "Peace." Said he could hear. Good. I'm glad you could hear. Jody Stickamo says, "Greetings." Lake and Apple, peace to the gods and much light to all. Max L says peace. A White says peace. Jody Stickamo said fire. Got the fire emojis up there. Oh wow. Yeah, see, if you don't dig into these, see, they don't really hide the truth from you. They just don't tell you where to go get it. It's stuck in the Library of Congress. Anything you want to know about what happened in these different places, and they moved all those people out of those different states and didn't care, but let you try to do that. Oh, that'll be a crime. You see, that'll be a crime if you tried to do what they did. You know, trying to get my see why my music ain't on. Oh, there it is. All right, I think I gave y'all enough history. So when you hear these people's talking, and there's actually a group that even sings about it in their song "Manifest Destiny." But see, when you hear these things and you don't know what these terms mean, you let it slip by. You know, he's just saying "manifest destiny." It's an agenda. It's an agenda. That's what it is. It's an agenda to keep white supremacy alive. Let's not make any mistakes. See, you can vote for whoever you want, and maybe some good things will happen for the person that you like for you. But for the most part, these people are playing for one team, and that's their team. It's about the haves and the have-not. It's that simple. Your interest is not even a factor in any decision making that they're doing. It's all smoke and mirrors. All right, with that being said, it's 8:02. I think I pissed you off enough with history. y'all want y'all want some real history, go to the Library of Congress and dig it out. And now with it, listen, it is no reason why you can't get information now with AI. The stuff that I used to have 10 years ago, when I used to look up all of this stuff, I had to do the Googles and go here, go here. Now I can just go to Chat GPT or something and type in. Give me all the information you can find on Manifest Destiny. That's how I popped it up. It was so much. And when I did this research some years ago, I was reading stuff. I got even better stuff this time. There's no reason why y'all can't get information now. AI, in some ways, can be a blessing. The only time you want to know something, what's the true history? Like, okay, let's do this. I'm not telling y'all what I'm typing. I know the answer to this. I'll tell y'all in a minute. Okay. How many of y'all so how many of y'all in the South know that there were black governors in the South? I mean, I'm not talking about 19 this and that. I'm talking about like in the 1870s. How many know that in history they taught you that they had black governors? I know they had it because I did the research Library of Congress and they pulled them up, but they don't talk about them in history books. You know, I lived in South Carolina for years and no one ever brought it up. It's nowhere to be found. Okay, here it is. Throughout the history of the Southern United States, there have been only a few black governors due to systemic racism, disenfranchisement, and barriers to political participation. Here are the notable black governors in Southern history. PBS Pinchback, Louisiana, 1872-1873. Party, Republican. Oh, wow. Not a Democrat, Republican. Term, served as acting governor for 35 days, December 8th, 1870, January 13, 1873. Significance. Pinchback was the first black governor in U.S. history. He assumed the role after Governor Henry C. Warmer was impeached during Reconstruction. 1990 to 1940, Douglas Wilder of Virginia. That was a Democrat. But that's late. That's after the Civil Rights Movement. This is missing some. Because what about in, let me do this again, because South Carolina had a black governor. They're gonna make me dig. ChatGPT, you being racist, bro. According to ChatGPT, it's saying that Francis C. Cardozo, the first African-American to hold statewide office in South Carolina, serving as Secretary of State, 1868 to 1872. Tim Scott, Robert Smalls. This is, they somewhat giving part of the history, but I'm gonna have to dig out the archives on it. Because I did that. I remember I did this too, I think probably 7 years ago, showing black governors in South Carolina. It was at least one. Yeah, there was an all-black Congress in South Carolina. That office was taken by shotgun. Absolutely. Pitchfork Ben Tillman. Yep. Somebody said a lot of these sovereign citizens promote manifest destiny. Yes, they do. And see, a lot of them think no one knows what that really means. Oh, they do what they do. But this is a different breed of folks these days. It ain't gonna go over so well. I can guarantee you that. All right, that's it for me today. I was on the road for about 6 hours today. So tune in next time. And thanks to all the people on TikTok. I'm sorry I couldn't I didn't see a lot of people joined in. No, I got 17 hearts. Thanks. I'm gonna put a goal up. I need to get on my TikTok channel too. Let me see what Telegram's doing. Oh, Telegram got a lot of people on it. Yeah. Got quite a few there. All right. TikTok people and Telegram. I'm out. I'll see y'all next time. I got a lot to share when it comes to this history, but I had to talk about that manifest destiny that Trump was trying to spew. I said, I largely didn't have a big problem with him becoming president again. But when he said that, I said, up. Not everybody caught that. They let that fly. I couldn't let that fly. Because I know exactly what manifest destiny is about. It's racist. And it's about white supremacy. There's no other way to color this thing. All right. All right, y'all have a good one. Peace. We are so powerful, we can have what we want. There's no doubt about it. You can have exactly what you want. And guess what? You are getting exactly what you think. See, having what you want and having what you think is two different things. They gotta align. You can't be wanting peace, but thinking hell. You have to align your consciousness with the reality. You have to align it. There's people out here that want to be millionaires, billionaires, whatever, at least have a lot of money, at the least. But for some reason, they can't get it. They're not in line or in the frequency of that flow of money. Why? Simply because their rhythm, vibration, and their thinking is not in that space. For a fleeting moment, they think about, man, it'd be good to have all of this money. Do you realize that when you say it will be good to have all this money, you just declared to the universe that you don't have it? So therefore, you're stuck in that spot where you know and believe you don't have it. Wish I had this, I wish I had that. That's why you ain't got it, because you wish it. Another reason why you got it, you're praying to God to give it to you instead of thanking God that you got it. Because all that God has to offer is already there for you to go walk up and take part in. It's like a divine buffet.